at Latin 3. Here we are, chapter 82, The Lotus Eaters of Ulysses. Yeah, there's not much to say other than to just jump into the translation. Turns out the Lotus Eaters is a pretty common thing. You come upon a bunch of people who decide that they have lost all ambition, whereas Ulysses is trying to get home. Let's see. However, after they had gone a few miles away from the shore of Troy, such a storm arose suddenly that none of the ships were able to hold their course, but some were thrown into other parts or were separated greatly from the group. So here, alias is not a accusative plural. It's actually an adverb. It took me like 3 years to figure that out. And then in partis, it should be in partibus. So in parts, otherwise. So in other words, like such a storm arose that it just took some ships not only away from their convoy, but just to a different part of the ocean. Okay. Moreover, the ship on which Ulysses himself was being carried was driven by the force of a storm. Was driven by the force of a storm to the middle of the day, and on the 10th day, it was let down on the shore of Libya. So the storm lasted so long that it wasn't until noon on the 10th day that they arrived in Libya. Now, Libya, interestingly enough, is where you end up close to Carthage, close to where Dido was. Again, if you look at the Aeneid, it's essentially Roman fan fiction of the Odyssey. Odysseus went there, so did Aeneas. Odysseus did this, so did Aeneas. Odysseus saw this person, so did Aeneas. With the anchors thrown out, in other words, they set anchor, Ulysses decided that either that some of his men would be deployed on land, or that could be an accusative plus infinitive indirect statement. He decided that they would do that, or he decided to do that to them. It could be a complementary infinitive. He decided to deploy some of his allies onto land, who would bring back, now that's a relative clause of purpose, very rare. Normally you see characteristic. Who would bring back water to the ship, and who would learn what sort was the nature of this place. What I love there is that you have an indirect question buried within a relative cause of purpose. Therefore, these guys, once they had left from the ship, they were preparing to do what had been ordered. However, while they seek a spring, I'm going to say spring, not a well or not a fountain, because you go out onto an island to find a spring. While they seek a spring, some of them, they were welcomed or received by they were received by some of the inhabitants whom they had met with great hospitality. So they met the natives. It happened, moreover, that a larger part of the diet of these men being the inhabitants, consisted largely in some part of a certain fruit which they called the lotus. When the Greeks had tasted this, they immediately forgot about their homeland and their allies. By the way, obliti is having forgotten, okay? But it's a verb that takes the genitive. And they swore that they would always stay in that place or on that land, in order to Westgerentor, in order that they would eat or devour that food forever of deliciousness, that food of delight forever. So they're hooked on drugs. There you go, kids. If you're seeking a spring, don't do drugs. And that's pretty much what happens, because your friend will have to come back and bend your arm behind your back or something like that. On a very special Ulysses. Anyway, that's the end of the Lotus Eaters, chapter 82. I'll probably do a couple more chapters, and then, it's getting late. But those of you who came with me to Rome, we're almost to Mount Etna. I'm going to hit the button.